Role of nucleosome modifiers and chromatin remodelers in transcription. We all know that nucleosomes are the basic unit of chromosomes. In other words, binding of nucleosomes to DNA is basically responsible for packaging of DNA, and as the DNA gets more packaged, it is going to minimize gene expression. And hence, this session is going to focus on how nucleosome modifiers and chromatin remodelers enable accessibility to the transcription machinery to carry out transcription. So let us look at the learning outcomes of the session. So DNA as chromatin is formed by regulations such as histone modifications, histone variants, histone eviction, and chromatin remodeling. And the levels of chromatin condensation actually decides the accessibility of the promoters for transcription. So chromatin regulation has an effect on binding of the transcription factors. It has an effect on transcription initiation as well as elongation. So specific modifications of the histones within the nucleosomes can either lead to transcription activation or it can lead to transcription repression. So nucleosome positioning is another aspect that is able to actually demarcate promoters from the transcription start site, and thus altering nucleosome position can regulate transcription. Now let us look at actually what chromatin is. So when you have a DNA in a cell, it is never present as naked DNA. To accommodate itself into a tiny nucleus, it has to become more compact. And so, by supercoiling and by interacting with nucleosomes, the DNA is able to get into what is called as the first level of condensation by interacting with nucleosomes. So this is kind of what is called as a bead in a string structure, and it is also referred to as the 10 nanometer fiber. And the DNA basically takes about 1.65 turn around one nucleosome, and that turn comprises 146 base pair of DNA. So that part of the DNA that is wound around the nucleosome is what is called as the core DNA. And it has been noted that about approximately 14 contacts are made uh, by the DNA with the histone octamer. And therefore, this histone or nucleosome DNA interaction is considered to be quite a stable interaction. Now, the DNA that is present between two nucleosomes is what is called as linker DNA, and the length of this linker DNA in base pairs can vary. So it may be so that a linker DNA between these two nucleosomes is, say for example, 100 base pairs, but say for example between these two it is about 200 base pairs. So the linker DNA length can vary all through the entire chromatin structure. Now, suppose you have a promoter region over here. So, if it is present in the linker DNA, then because linker DNA is not wound around the nucleosome, it is accessible. And so, it may be possible that an RNA polymerase can come and bind to the promoter region and initiate transcription. Now, however, there is definitely the point is that when it reaches a point where the DNA is wound around the nucleosome, then it has to ensure that the DNA gets unwound and it continues elongating. So you can see that transcription, even if it is beginning, the RNA pol or the transcription machinery has to ensure that for elongation as well, the DNA gets loosened from the nucleosomes or unpackaged from the nucleosomes. So that is one aspect that is definitely that is going to be taken care of by nucleosome modifiers and chromatin remodelers. Now suppose you have this bead in the string structure or the 10 nanometer fiber condensing further to form what is called as a 30 nanometer fiber, or what is also called as a solenoid form of the DNA. Okay, it's called solenoid because you can see that you have basically six nucleosomes forming a loop, and likewise you have several loops being formed, and that looping of the bead in the 10 nanometer fiber is because of the histone 1 binding to the linker DNA regions very close to the core DNA, and so it is almost like the histone 1 collars the core DNA. So therefore, that binding of the histone 1 is able to bend the DNA in order to form a circular structure. So therefore, a loop that is formed is thanks to the histone 1. But what is definitely clear is that as it gets more condensed, you can see that now even the linker DNA is bound to by the histone 1. To a great extent, most of the linker DNA is now also occupied by a protein, and therefore the regions available for transcription initiation are getting lesser. When this goes to forming a metaphase scaffold, it becomes even highly condensed, and there you will see minimum or negligible gene expression. So suppose you had a promoter region that is present within the core DNA, then obviously because the promoter region is wound around the nucleosome, it is already bound to a protein structure, the accessibility for the RNA pol is going to be much lesser, and therefore transcription initiation from this promoter will not occur or will not be easily done. So therefore, there is a need that this core DNA has to somehow be unwound or from the nucleosome such that the promoter region is accessible to the promoter. So this is extremely important to note, that as the DNA becomes more and more condensed, the accessibility for the RNA polymerase 2 is going to decrease. Now, let us look at the structure of the nucleosome itself. So, nucleosome is basically a histone octamer, and there are four histone molecules, that is H3, H4, H2A, and H2B, which in dimers are basically forming the histone octamer. So, first, what happens is that the H3 and H4 form a dimer, and then two dimers form a tetramer. Similarly, H2A and H2B form a dimer, and two dimers of H2A, H2B come together to form a tetramer. And then these tetramers of H3, H4 and H2A, H2B come together to form the final histone octamer. And you can see that every histone molecule, whether it is H3, H4, H2A or H2B, you can see that there is a globular part and there are tails present. So you will find that there are distinct regions which are remaining as filaments, while there are regions that become what is called as globular domains. So when you have the entire octamer present, you will find that the tails are coming out of the entire structure. So these are what are called as the histone tails, and these tails play an important role with respect to nucleosome modifications. So you can see how also the tails are able to hold on to the DNA. Now, the reason for holding on to this DNA is because, the tails have a high percentage of basic amino acids like lysine and arginine. And because of that, the positive charge on the tails is high, and hence it will attract the negatively charged DNA to wind around the structure. So therefore, the nucleosome DNA complex that is formed is therefore a stable conformation, and although it looks static, it is not really a static structure. It is highly dynamic. That means you can see various changes happening within this structure, and that is why we call it as nucleosome modifications or nucleosome modifiers. Proteins that are able to carry out these modifications are what are termed as nucleosome modifiers, and they are generally non-histone protein complexes. Now, let us look at nucleosome modifications in brief, and that too with respect to how nucleosome modifications happen. So you can see that you have the core globular region of the nucleosome octamer with the histone tails, out, open out, and these histone tails, as we mentioned, have several residues of lysine and arginine. Okay, You can see K over here. K is where you have the lysine residues. Similarly, you can find it in all the histone tails. Now, these lysines and serines and arginines are residues to which several chemical groups are added. So this is what is called as covalent modifications, and this happens post-translational, after the translation has happened. So these modifications are post-translation modifications. Now, there are several different types of post-translational modifications that can happen at the histone tails. For example, acetyl group can be added, so you have acetylation. Phosphorylation is one such modification that is possible on the histone tail. You can have deacetylation also. If you already have an acetylated residue, the acetyl group can be removed. So deacetylation is another possibility. So in fact, acetylation is a reversible modification. Similarly, phosphorylation can also be a reversible modification. You can also have ubiquitination. So you can see that within the globular portion of the nucleosome, you have a ubiquitin added to a lysine residue again. So you can have ubiquitination as well. You can have ADP ribosylation possible. You can have methylation possible. So these are all the different types of modifications that are possible, not just in the globular part of the nucleosome, but also on the histone tails. And extremely interesting to note is that depending on how or what is carrying out the modifications at the histone tail, you will have what is called a histone code. So for example, here you have serine being phosphorylated at this position. You have a lysine at the fifth position acetylated. You have another lysine at the ninth position acetylated. You have another lysine at the 12th or 13th position acetylated. And then again, say for example, acetylated at 21st position. Suppose this is the way the modification happens, then this is a histone code. And this code can be recognized by several other different proteins. So they can come and bind to this specific histone code. Now, if you alter the histone code, so for example, you remove the phosphorus from here, and so you remove an acetyl group also from here, and you are left with only three acetyl on these respective lysines, then that becomes another code. Suppose you have a methyl group added, then the addition of the methyl group will make it a different histone code. So depending on the different modifications that happen at the histone code, you have one specific sequence or set of modifications giving rise to what is called as a histone code. And every histone code will be specific for interaction of these histone tails with other protein molecules. So you can say that the modifications of the histone tails and also the modification at the globular region of the nucleosome are an invitation to a set of proteins to come and bind to it. And when this set of proteins come and bind to it, you can have different kinds of regulations happening because of that interaction. So that is also the reason why the nucleosome per se is considered to be a dynamic structure and not a static structure. Now let us, for example, take a look at one of the modifications, which is acetylation. So you have histone acetyl transferases. These histone acetyl transferases are able to specifically bind to certain residues on histone tails at certain positions of the chromatin and acetylate the nucleosome. So here you can very well see that the nucleosomes have been acetylated. Now, when this acetylation happens, okay, please do understand that there are several variants of the histone acetyl transferases, and depending on the variants, I guess they would be able to recognize different, regions of the chromatin where it can come and bind or acetylate the lysine residues. So, one of the typical observations that have been observed with most nucleosome modifications, whether it is acetylation, whether it is phosphorylation, or it is methylation, except of course methylation, certain methylations do not behave the same way as other modifications do. But let us make it kind of understandable that uh, modifications, most of these modifications actually render a net charge, a change in the net charge of the nucleosome. Certain methylations do not do so, but most other modifications, so for example, a phosphorylation is done, again you can see there is a change in the net charge on the nucleosome. So depending on how many acetylations, how many phosphorylations, how many methylations, you will have that kind of a net change in the charge of the nucleosomes. And that is definitely something that can affect the binding of the DNA to the nucleosome. So say for example, in case of acetylation, when an acetyl group is added to the lysine, you can very well understand that lysine per se, the residues ends with an NH2 plus, NH3 plus, and therefore there is a plus sign or there is a positive charge present on the lysine residues. Now, if on those lysine residues an acetyl group is added, then the entire structure ends with a CH3 which has no charge. So therefore, what is typically understood is that something which was highly positively charged is now becoming neutral or there is no charge. So when there is no charge present, what will happen? One, it is definitely going to invite less DNA to wind around the nucleosomes. So there is the DNA may be wound around, but it is less, interactive with the nucleosome. So it is, you may consider that the winding around is loose. It is not strong. Okay. Moreover, the modifications by acetylation will also affect interaction between the nucleosomes per se. You know, one nucleosome interacting with the other nucleosome, that itself can be affected by the presence of the modifying group. So, therefore, in case of acetylation, what has been observed is that a condensed region can become less packaged. So, and with the packaging decreasing, the accessibility to the transcription machinery is definitely going to increase. So, you can have more of pre-initiation complex formation or pre-initiation complex assembly at regions which are less condensed. And that has been thanks to the hat. So this we are only taking as an example. Similarly, you can have other modifications which can accordingly lead to greater packaging or lesser packaging, and based on that you would either have gene expression or you would have no gene expression. So thereby nucleosome modifications is regulating transcription, and this is especially helping in the initiation process. So therefore you can see how nucleosome modifications help in transcription initiation, and in fact before transcription initiation the ability to bind to the transcription factors itself. And also what has been noted is that when the histones in the nucleosome are acetylated, it is easier to displace these histones from the DNA. So you can also have histone eviction when the nucleosomes are acetylated. Okay, so that is another important facet of the nucleosome modification by histone acetyl transferase. As mentioned earlier, this modification is reversible if you have an HTAC, that is histone deacetylase, coming and binding and removing the acetyl groups. Then again what is going to happen is a less condensed region will become condensed again. Why? Because the lysine will get back its positive charge, and when it is highly positive charged it will bind to or wrapping around of the new DNA around it will become stronger, and therefore it will become more condensed. So these are certain interesting facts, and like mentioned before, the tail has histone codes, and so based on what is the histone code on every histone tail, you will have different effector proteins coming and binding, and those effector proteins will then have a certain role to play in whether it is going to allow initiation of transcription, or whether it is going to silence transcription. Another important phenomenon which helps in packaging of the DNA per se, or not just packaging of the DNA, actually helping in changing the way the DNA is packaged, is what is called as chromatin remodeling. As the word suggests, when you have a DNA bound to various nucleosomes, and if the nucleosome that is bound is in some way remodeled, okay, then you may have the position of the nucleosomes varying, the presence of the nucleosomes at a particular region in the DNA varying, so on and so forth. So that is what is called as chromatin remodeling. And since it has to do with the packaging of the DNA, it is going to have a direct role to play with respect to transcription process. Now, the chromatin remodeling is basically altering histone DNA contact. And there are several ways by which you have the histone DNA contact varying, which is what we are going to see. But what is most important to understand is that most of the key chromatin remodelers, so there are several complexes present in the cells that are responsible for chromatin remodeling. Say, for example, in the yeast, you have the Swiss-Nif complex, and you also have the RSC complex. Similarly, in humans, you will have other complexes present that can act as chromatin remodelers. And one thing that has been observed with any chromatin remodeler is that it has subunits that are not just able to bind to ATP, but it also is able to hydrolyze ATP. So they have inherent ATPase activity. So most of the chromatin remodeling is an ATP dependent process. So using ATP, the chromatin remodeler is able to carry out several different ways by which you have the chromatin remodeled. One way is by what is called as, okay, now before we go into this, look at the image that shows a point where there is a promoter. So you can see the red portion over here is, say, for example, the promoter region. Now, the way the DNA has been packaged shows that the promoter region is wound around a nucleosome, and hence it is not accessible for transcription. Now, suppose these nucleosomes are rotated and slid away. So, by nucleosome sliding, what can happen is that as the nucleosome slides away, you can have the DNA that was wound around the nucleosome getting unwound, but the DNA ahead gets wound around the nucleosome. So this is basically looking at the fact that the nucleosome position is deferred by just sliding of the nucleosome. And because of that sliding, what has now happened is that the promoter region is present within the linker DNA. And because it is present in the linker DNA, it is more accessible for the transcription factors to come and bind, for the pre-initiation complex to be formed over here to initiate transcription. What can also be done is that an existing nucleosome can be completely evicted. That is, the entire octamer can be actually removed from a particular region, and because it is removed from a particular position, you again can have a linker DNA that becomes longer without a nucleosome, and you can have the promoter region present within that linker DNA per se, and therefore accessibility for the pre-initiation complex to assemble becomes greater. You can also have an unwrapping of the DNA around the nucleosome. So you can see that the nucleosome has not been evicted or removed, neither has it changed its position. But what has happened is that the DNA that is wound around it becomes loosened, and now it is not wound around. So when it is basically just around but not interacting with the nucleosome, and thereby also therefore the accessibility of the promoter to the transcription machinery is increased. And you can see that you can have the DNA looping out of the nucleosome bits and pieces so that the transcription machinery moves ahead. Another interesting thing that happens is that you can have a dimer, say for example H2A H2B, replaced by a histone variant. Okay, now therefore when you have variants added, so when you say histone variants, it means it is not the same H2A H2B, but a similar variant of the histone can come and bind, and because it is a variant, its affinity to bind to the DNA may accordingly vary. So basically, what we understand is that whether you want eviction of the nucleosome, histone chaperones, That means chaperones are molecules that help in unwinding of the histone proteins. So it is basically associated with assembly and disassembly of histones in the nucleosome. And so, say for example, NAP1 is a histone chaperone. It is associated with exchange of the canonical histones, that is the normal histones, with the variants. So you can have eviction also because of histone chaperones, and you can have exchange of variants with the normal or canonical histones, so that the nucleosome now is made up of a variant, and that variation can cause a change in how the DNA is wrapped around the nucleosome. Say, for example, at the centromeric region, you have nucleosomes containing CENP. CENP is again a histone variant, and thereby you can find that the centromeric region has not nucleosomes made up of canonical histones, but made up of this CENP, which is a variant of a H3 histone. Again, another example is H2AZ is a histone variant, and what has been observed is that when you have a nucleosome made up of H2A Z variant, it will facilitate the binding of the Tata box binding protein, and thereby initiating formation of a pre-initiation complex. You can also have just a dimer getting ejected. So you may not have a complete nucleosome being ejected, but only a dimer. So when a dimer also is ejected out, so in an octamer, from an octamer, even if a single dimer is ejected out, again there is room for the DNA to now remain unbound. And so you can have and if the promoter region is present exactly at that point, then the accessibility of any transcription factor to that region may have increased. So that's how chromatin remodeling is playing an important role again in transcription initiation. Now, the transcription factors, therefore, as we have observed, can have binding sites in a nucleosome free region, or it can also have a binding site at nucleosome bound sites. Now, interestingly, in the East, what has been observed is wherever there is a promoter region, okay, the nucleosome density is less. So it is considered to be an open chromatin region. In fact, many of the places where you have the upstream activating sequences, even the upstream activating sequences are a less condensed or open chromatin form. So when, but it is not completely what is therefore definitely observed is before and after this non nucleosome region or nucleosome free region, you still have nucleosomes that are winding around the DNA. And for transcription, what is going to happen is once initiation progress, you will have to have these getting unbound a little. So at this point, what can happen is that chromatin remodelers and histone acetyl transferases do come in, and when they do come in as co-activators, they're basically acetylating the nearby nucleosomes. And we all know that when you have histones acetylated, the winding of the DNA around the nucleosomes is definitely becoming lesser. And also what can happen is that the acetylated histones can be evicted. So say for example, histones are evicted, and especially if the histone around the promoter region present or the nucleosomes around the promoter regions are already containing histone variants. In those conditions, the variant is more easily evicted out, and therefore what is going to happen? The nucleosome that was present over here is now completely evicted, and therefore you can see how this entire DNA portion where this part was present within a nucleosome is now open. And say for example, this open DNA has a transcription start site, then what is going to happen is the entire pre-initiation complex will get assembled here along with mediators or SAGA complexes will come and bind, and then you will have initiation beginning. So therefore, from a silent transcription, it is going to an active transcription thanks to chromatin remodeling and the histone acetylation. Now you can also have what is called as other kind of modifications happening here. The example in the East is found that around promoter regions, it's generally histone acetylation. That is what is happening. Now, this was by histone eviction, but what can also happen is that before histone eviction, you can already have the pre-initiation complex, not the entire one, but you have partial pre-initiation complex formed. And when you have the histone eviction happening, finally you can have the the mediator and the TF2H coming in. With the TF2H coming in, you will have the transcription bubble formed and initiation of transcription occurring. Now, this has been observed in the east species. There are a lot of studies carried out in different species, and what has been said, this is for example in humans, in mammals. So it's been observed that when the lysine residue of histone 3, and that too the fourth lysine residue of the lysine residue at the fourth position is methylated, methylated, and even at the 79th position it is methylated, or the H3 is acetylated, then this acetylation or this methylation was considered to be a strict prerequisite for binding of the transcription activator. And once you have the MYC transcription activator binding, then it is going to initiate transcription of the gene. So you see how just a simple modification at two lysine residues is enabling a transcription activator to come and bind. And the binding of the transcription activator will initiate binding to the pre-initiation complex, and therefore the assembly of the pre-initiation complex becomes stable, and that can begin the transcription initiation. So you also note that the the chromatin remodeling or the nucleosome modification plays an important role not only at the transcription initiation, but it also helps in the elongation process of transcription. So, to enable the RNA pol to continuously synthesize the DNA, there are several complexes associated during the elongation process that ensures that it creates a, less packaged DNA so that the RNA pol 2 can continuously synthesize the DNA. And the point to which the complexes that are helping in the process, whether it is a histone chaperone, or whether it is a chromatin remodeler, or whether it is a histone acetyl transferase, they all come and bind to the phosphorylated CTD tail of the RNA polymerase 2. And this is therefore again another example of why phosphorylation of CTD tail in the eukaryotic system is important. Several cases have been studied where, or there are reports where, when RNA polymerase 2 encounters nucleosome, they backtrack. So when they backtrack, again you would have to have elongation factors coming and binding to the RNA pol 2 to overcome the backtracking and then move forward. So you can see that the presence of the nucleosome may actually hinder the elongation process, but there are different complexes that are helping the process to move on. So as you can see, you have FACT, which is a histone chaperone. You have, several different complexes which are able to carry out remodeling. So you have RSC, which carries out remodeling. You have TF2S, which helps in the elongation process, and the POL2 then is able to continuously transcribe. So you have these complexes acting as secondary factors that are able to allow the transcription to move on as elongation. So these are just looking at how acetylation, histone eviction are responsible for ensuring that the RNA polymerase 2 is able to elongate transcription properly. And it is interesting to know that once the DNA has been transcribed, so RNA pol 2 has say transcribed the DNA, then those portions that were open will again get reassembled, because we know that histone chaperones are responsible for assembly as well as disassembly of the nucleosome on the DNA. And in fact, many a times it is that the assembly is happening is exactly the same point where it was earlier before eviction. So those things are all taken care of by the chromatin remodelers, the histone chaperones. and of course the various enzymes that are responsible for modification of the nucleosomes per se. So just looking at the whole process as an overview, you see here that you have a transcription activator protein binding site that is blocked or that is not accessible because it is wound around a nucleosome, and even the the Tata box binding protein site is blocked or rather not accessible because it is wound around the DNA. So therefore to this nucleosome DNA complex that is there, or to this conformation which is inactive, that means you do not have transcription on, so it is basically that the gene is silent. When you have chromatin remodeling complexes coming and binding, you can see that you can have a sliding of the nucleosome happening to make the promoter region as well as to the the Tata binding box binding region accessible. So you can see how the sliding is responsible for changing the regions of the DNA that is wound around the nucleosome core, and ensuring that you have the tap binding site now as a linker, the TBP binding site now as a linker, and so they are accessible. So therefore, what happens is that the transcription activator protein would bind to a mediator, which in turn will bind to the TF2D and TF2B, and that itself as a whole complex will come and bind to the TBP binding site, so the Tata box, and so on binding to that and recruiting the RNA polymerase to from this point on now. Therefore, what happens is the transcription initiation will begin. Another interesting observation made is that when DNA is methylated, so not the histones per se, but when the DNA is methylated, so these are what is called as the epigenetic changes. In many cases, because of these epigenetic changes, certain cis-acting elements are not accessible. So, for example, you can have an inactive enhancer because of DNA methylation. But what has been observed is those nucleosomes that are associated with the methylated portions of the DNA, when they are modified with acetylation or methylation, have been enabled to open up the DNA at the enhancer region. So it becomes what is called as open chromatin, where there is an enhancer region. And to that, you will find transcription factors binding, which in effectively then will, through the mediator, bind to the promoter region. And you can see that around the promoter region as well, you have the histone getting methylated at the lysine region. And so therefore, the enhancer region bound to the transcription factor will interact with the PIC that assembles over here to initiate formation of the mRNA. Now, interestingly, what has also been observed is that this was when you have the DNA methylated, but it has been observed that many methylations of the histone at specific residues can also silence a gene, okay? But when those are modified, okay, then you can have again the transcription activation happening. So it is not methylation just at the DNA level, but the way the nucleosome is modified also decides whether this gene is going to remain silent or it is going to be active. So therefore, making the conclusions, nucleosome binding to the DNA can come in the way of transcription initiation and elongation, although open chromatin is associated with several cis-acting elements. Specific post-translational modifications of the histone tails as well as the globular domains can either decrease or increase the histone DNA context, thereby affecting transcription activity. Chromatin remodeling and histone eviction are responsible for nucleosome sliding, unwrapping of the DNA that gives the transcription machinery accessibility to key sites. Histone variants and chaperones also play an important role in assembly and disassembly of the nucleosomes. Thereby, nucleosome modifications and chromatin remodeling influence the packaging of DNA, binding of protein complexes and transcription factors, etc., leading to either activation or silencing of genes. Thank you.